Unstoppable Kickass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Raw and Unscripted show with yours truly, Mr. Christopher Rausch, the place where I help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have an amazing show in store for you tonight. We have a special guest that's going to be joining us here in just a minute. But as we always do, we have to say hello to our Misfits for Life. Kickass Larry, what's going on, Rockstar? Thank you so much, brother, for being here. You are fabulous. I hope you're doing fantastic. Look at this. What's going on? Kellen Ann is already in the house. What's up? She says, just in time to see the amazing Christopher Rausch. Well, he's going to be here in just a minute, but right now I'm going to go have to do because I'm his brother, his twin brother. Robert Brooker's in the house. What's up, Robert? Good to see you. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. Is it Taco Tuesday? Anybody having tacos? Is anybody having tacos on Raw and Unscripted Taco Tuesday? That's what we should do. We should do that. We should totally have Raw and Unscripted Taco Tuesdays, and we meet here and we have dinner with our guests. Yeah, we could do a Zoom multiple camera angle kind of thing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just getting kind of carried away. I'm just getting carried away. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for being here. Whether you're here live with us every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or if you're catching this on the replay, we thank you. And as always, please engage with us. Ask us questions of both myself and, of course, my guest. You're going to want to pick their brain and walk away from this opportunity with notes, with at least 3 tangible tasks that you can do, that you can put into play starting tomorrow. That's really the emphasis and the focus on this, is that you walk away with a mindset shift that is enabling you to go ahead and look at things a little bit differently, even starting tonight, or even, but better yet, tomorrow. That's what we want you to do. We want you to focus on those things. So, yeah, as Robert says tacos, some of those would go down well. Absolutely. I've got literally, to be honest with you guys, my dinner was going to be ready before, but then something happened. We have a problem with our refrigerator. Fun stuff. But I could smell my dinner wafting up in here, and I'm like, I'm so hungry. But you know what I'm hungry for? I'm hungry for knowledge. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm hungry for knowledge. And tonight, my guest, I have had the opportunity of knowing Mr. Jim Gardner for, I'm bad at time, so I'm going to say 2013. So that's 8 years. Might as well be a lifetime, because the conversations that Jim and I have had over the years, both in person when we were going to events and speaking together, and then also the conversations that we've had on Facebook and also on the phone and Zoom, have really just been so inspiring. It's so great to talk to somebody who is level-headed, who is intelligent, who also has a sense of humor, and also really sees the deeper meaning of what it means to find the root cause of a problem. And I'm happy to dive down into the rabbit hole with Mr. Jim Gardner tonight and then have those conversations. This is really about mindset. I titled this called Adapting, an Adaptive Training Foundation. Is something we're going to be talking about tonight. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to really just kind of expand your mind on what it is that we're going to initially talk about. But again, it's about mindset. It's about shifting your perspective about your past, present, and your future. It's about shifting your perspective about the way you're visioning life happening for you or life happening to you. So it's with my extreme honor that I get to add to this particular show, Mr. Jim Gardner. Jim, how are you doing this evening, brother?
I am doing awesome this evening, Chris. I am honored to join you here this evening. We're going to have a lot of fun. One thing before I forget, based on what you mentioned to your tribe here, those 3 things, pick one thing that you're most excited about tonight and think about that, because that's what your subconscious will marinate on for tomorrow. And you'll wake up and you'll immediately think about that one thing that you're most excited about knocking off your list.
Have you been talking a lot? You were like trying to do the sultry, sexy bedroom voice.
Well, I didn't tell you. I took up smoking, right?
You took up smoking and you didn't invite me? What are you smoking? You smoking kielbasas? You smoking some steaks? You smoking chicken? What are you smoking?
I wish. No, I'm here in Texas, the allergy capital of the world. So we've been going through a little bit of a change. Y'all probably heard about the fun cold weather we had about 3 weeks ago. And so now everything's blooming out, and this is the result. So doesn't hurt, just sounds a little froggy.
Well, we'll just call it Jim Gardner's sexy bedtime voice as we talk about, mindset and how we can adapt to changing environments. And speaking of changing environments, obviously over the last year, literally now here in March, the last year, as of the airing of this particular show, we've been going through the obviously COVID-19 pandemic that has been, just striking every part of the world. And thinking about change and thinking about adaptability, that's why I really wanted to get you on the show, Jim, is that in this particular time, I have seen so many people pivot and adapt to the change and harness whatever technology and opportunities they have to grow and expand and to change whatever it is that wasn't working for them. And I've seen people absolutely just turn around and go and try to go back to the way things were, which obviously there's no way to go back to anything. What has been your experience during COVID and coaching people and leading people and working with individuals over this period of time? What is your overall frame of reference on how people adapt to change, especially with what we've had with the pandemic?
Well, it's been a mix, Chris, and I would even add a third component. I think there are those who want to go back. There are those who are kind of frozen in place, which is kind of the third piece. But then there are those who recognize a challenge as opportunity. And so it's looking at some of those challenges, doing things differently, and how can I, as an example, how can I, be more creative? How can I be, more of an investigator about my own life, about, my surroundings, about what it is that I've become probably too familiar with? And so how can I step outside of that and really take advantage instead of just wanting to go back to the old days, the way it used to be, remember when, those kinds of things. So, for me, as a performance coach and working with C-level executives and, helping to lead some corporate initiatives, those kinds of things, as well as even with professional athletes, I was busier last year than I've been in my whole career. And I was really surprised by that. But it was a matter of clients coming to me and them being in a bit of a quandary, most of them wanting to adapt and make change, but having to do so quickly was really the challenge. And so, trying to help them, look at what's the circumstance, what is your vision that you want to have ultimately, what's your intention, and then starting to lay some stepstones that allow you to proceed through that. And recognizing that there are going to be more challenges than there might have been in, let's say, normal times. But again, looking at those challenges as ways to do things differently. So, one of the big things, for example, with my CEO clients, I'll just pick one randomly, fairly new company, had built from basically zero a year and a half, well, 2.5 years ago now, to 325 employees. And now, within a matter of a week, have to send everybody home. How do you do that? Oof. And so there are all kinds of logistics issues. This happened to be a health-related organization. So you have things that you wouldn't even think about, for example, with HIPAA laws. And people might not think about this, but if you are someone who has access to that information, to even share it in a phone conversation that can be overheard by someone else. So if you're in your home, that's a problem. So how do you work through things like that? And so, it was a matter of just looking at each of those, breaking them down, and identifying how you maintain leadership in going through that, and recognizing that nobody really had the answers, but it's being creative and curious about how we're going to get through it, because we can go crawl under a rock and hope that it all goes away, which I think to a degree happened for the first couple of months. But then when it was obvious that it wasn't going to go away, then we've got to navigate through this and really try to identify the opportunities. Another example with my professional athletes, depending on their sport, what do we do? How do we stay sharp mentally? How do we work out? Now we can't go to our facility, we can't go to a gym, And so even working with them about really getting curious and creative about what it is that they can do to keep both their mental and physical attributes sharp.
So where do you start out with, Jim? And when I think about that, I think about going back into the recesses of my mind, and what I've helped people do during this period. And I found more often than not, and Tony Robbins talks about it, we do things for one or two reasons: to gain pleasure or to avoid pain. And so I immediately go into the situation when I'm trying to figure out how I can get somebody to change their perspective about their current situation and not be a victim anymore, to be that victor. I look at it as a way to shift their way they're perceiving their situation. How do you get that? How do you get that with your clients, and being able to shift whether or not they're trying to gain pleasure or to avoid pain? How do you get them to start realizing that it's time to take action versus when they get in their comfort zone or they get in their excuses? Talk to us about that.
Sure. Well, my whole coaching methodology is about the process, not about the outcome. And so even working with athletes, it's really changing that mental dynamic that they've been conditioned for so long. The same is really true for executives. So it's about learning to enjoy the process of preparation and practice, and appreciating those little wins and being fulfilled by those, because you can more quickly see your progress. And when you make a mistake, it's easier to recover with that type of mindset and try something a little bit different, tweak it, whatever the case may be. But if we're always going for the touchdown, and the goalposts just seem to keep moving further and further away by what's going on environmentally, then that's when we become frustrated, start to kind of curl up and try and find that rock, right? So it's kind of a natural thing based on what I work with my clients on anyway. But it was really just getting even more specific. So again, what I call kind of the micro habits that we now need to start to incorporate as far as the process goes. And when you don't have access to the things that you're accustomed to, what can you use to, basically do the same thing, but do it in a different way? So, if it's to build your biceps, for example, or to, gain additional aerobic capacity, then whatever you were doing, you've probably just done it because that's the way you've always done it. Well, now is the opportunity to become even better, to become stronger, because we're kind of forced into a situation to find new ways. And so what I found with my clients, once I presented it that way, was they were eager to jump in and really try something new and develop some new processes, some new habits. And what they found over the course of this past year was that the outcomes became even better than they would have otherwise.
I love that. Talk to us a little bit more about that, and dig into the fact of what are some of the excuses that you were faced with last year? Because I got, I don't have time. I don't know how to do this. I've never been lots of different excuses. What are some of the main excuses you got, and what were the ways that you overcame those with your clients?
Well, typically it's always, I don't have time. That's the biggest thing. And even back when I was in the corporate world, before I started coaching 11 years ago now, time flies. It was a matter of setting some boundaries. Chris, are we still there? Hello?
Yeah, you're still here. I just put you on full screen because you were saying something intelligent.
Sorry. I just wanted to make sure.
No, I just left. I just decided, it's Jim's show now. It's just the Jim show right now. I was going to go get some dinner and take a shower. So you just go ahead and just keep riffing.
I'll try and keep things moving. No, but it's setting boundaries. So as an example, with my corporate clients, I would say, show me your calendar. And, as would be assumed to be typical, the entire day, sometimes 12, 14 hours, was back to back to back meetings. And so I would literally go meeting by meeting. What is the intended outcome of this meeting? I really don't know. Well, why are you going? Well, because I'm expected to be there. By who? Well, by my peers, by my boss, whatever. And so teaching them that if they can't ask the question, even as an executive, what is the intended outcome here? Not the agenda, but what is it? What's the problem? What's the challenge? What is it that we're trying to, accomplish here? Then don't go to the meeting because it's wasting your time. The other thing that I've taught my clients, as well as some of my corporate clients, is you've always been conditioned to set meetings for an hour. It's an absolute waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
So from this day forward, every meeting is going to be 45 minutes, period. And each meeting ends in 40 minutes. You have 5 minutes to wrap up. Those are absolute non-negotiable boundaries. And so the same is true even for my athletes. And you go to practice and just looking at how much time is wasted standing around, basically doing nothing. So when you start to lay it out in that context and in those terms, it's like the light bulbs just go off in their heads. It's like, this, why have I been doing this all this time and wasting so much time? And it's an easy sell to the other people that they work with or that work for them, because it's so obvious. And so what that does, if you think about it, let's just say you have an 8-hour day and you attended meetings for those 8 hours, but it was only for 45 minutes. You just gained 2 hours, right? So what is it that you can do in those 2 hours? You can do rest and recovery, being what I call transition time. So if I have one topic that I'm addressing or one group that I'm addressing in this particular venue, then I have 15 minutes to really pause and think, and what is it that I have as the intended outcome for the next meeting? Or I can go grab some dinner, or I can meditate, or I can throw down and do 50 push-ups or what have you. And so it's just, again, that's an example of really the processes as opposed to the outcomes. And what they all start to see is that they're getting wins all throughout the day. Whereas before, at the end of the day, I'm worn out, I'm wasted, and I didn't accomplish crap in 14 hours of my life.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing? What you're talking about, Jim, is what something I was actually just helping a client through a couple of weeks ago. Is I said, let's make it, because she was talking about the same thing, time. And I said, okay, let's take a look at what we're tolerating. And she's like, what do you mean what I'm tolerating? I don't have time to tolerate stuff. And I said, well, we're going to do a little bit of an exercise. We're going to have you write down as you go through the week, the things that you're tolerating both professionally and personally, and take a look at that. And so we did the exercise. She came back in a week and she had like 10 things and 8 things. And I'm like, go back and do it another week. I said, I want you to really look at and examine what you're tolerating, what's causing you to pause and you have to pick up for somebody else, or what it is that you're prioritizing your focus on. And let's look at that. She came back with like 30 things. She goes, I didn't realize how much my attention was focused on the things that really don't matter. And I said, let's talk about what are the big 3 that we can take away that will maximize your opportunity to focus on the things that really matter. And so she picked those 3 things. Next week, boom, boom, boom. She's like, oh my God. She goes, I'm really realizing that I can, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls out there in TV land, that I can take responsibility for my time and how I allocate it, and to be able to have those conversations like you're saying, Jim. What is the intention? I love that you're focusing on that. What is the intention? I start with that so much throughout my day. What my first thing in the morning before my eyes wake up, before my eyes wake up, before my eyes open, before my eyes wake up, is I say what I'm intending for that day. I say what my intentions are. Some of them are repetitive. And so there's a formula there for success. Talk to us about, why is it that when we talk about change and adaptability, why does it always come up to fear? And talk to us about the fear that's wrapped up in that change. Talk to us about how we overcome that fear and change our perspective about it.
Well, so to overcome anything that you may be resistant to, whether it's fear, whatever, just requires stepping into it. And so sometimes, and I think that's where, people like you and I, as coaches, can, kind of metaphorically hold somebody's hand to, stick that first toe in the water, so to speak. And so that's what I do with my clients anyway, is just kind of lead them into it. Because if you try and throw somebody into a fire, then it's overwhelming. And I mean the fire metaphorically as well. But any kind of significant change seems overwhelming. It seems that's where fear really does develop. And I don't believe, even in working with Navy SEALs and Green Berets and so on, that we'll talk about in a little while, that you can overcome fear. You learn how to manage fear, put it in its place. And so, from that standpoint, it's just a matter of identifying specifically what is my intention that I want to overcome. And then what is the first baby step to get into that? And I don't believe that you can replace bad habits. I believe that you incorporate a new habit that ultimately will push out bad habits. And because you start to, again, feel, the satisfaction and the fulfillment of the progress in the process that you gain from those new habits. Now, how do you identify what those are? And Chris, I don't remember when you and I talked last, if I talked about or asked you the question, how many days are in 24 hours? Did we talk about that?
No, but I would, yeah. How many days are in 24 hours? Everybody seems to think there's a week in 24 hours.
Exactly. But most people obviously would say, well, there's one day in 24 hours. What if there were 6 days in 24 hours?
You have my attention.
Okay. So obviously with those 24 divided by 6, each day is 4 hours long. And going back to what I said a moment ago, looking at things that are chewable chunks, you can't eat an elephant all in one bite, as we've heard so many times. And things that are too large are overwhelming. So we are resistant to those. We don't step into those, we avoid them. So, and oftentimes our day gets to be just so monotonous, so routine, that in and of itself becomes overwhelming.
Mhm.
So for me, I wake up at 5 a.m. So my day one is from 5 a.m. till 9 a.m. And I have developed a set of habits that I call a ritual for day one. So I wake up, I won't go into all the details, but I wake up. The first thing I actually do is a little bit of meditation, and for me, a little bit of prayer and so on. Then I hydrate. Then I take care of my 3 dogs. And after that, I'm fortunate to where I have my own gym right next to my office here in the house. And so I work out as part of that. But I have this whole ritual that I go through. Now, it's not surgical. There are times when I have to travel. There are times when, I'm not feeling well or whatever the case may be. But that ritual is basically something that is a structure that is very easy for me to come back to, even if I miss a handful of days. And, and to jump back into that. But if I don't have that structure, then it's like, that's why people, don't go back to whatever their nutrition program might have been, or, their workout in the gym or whatever, because it seems too overwhelming, because it's unstructured. So, so that's kind of my general day one. And again, those are non-negotiable boundaries. My phone is not available. I don't look at social media. And one of the things that I share with my clients is teach people how to work with you so that you can be most effective for them.
Yes.
And where they might want to be able to contact you, let's say, I'm in Central Time Zone, but let's say they want to contact me at 8 a.m. Well, that's an hour before my day 2 starts, which is my workday at 9 a.m. It's non-negotiable. I don't do it.
Nice.
And I explain to them why. So they know that I will be available at 9 o'clock. And so that way they don't get all fired up and agitated or whatever if they don't get a response from me, because I've taught them how to work with me so that they get my full attention when I am available for them. So now the other thing is that at 8:30, still I'm within my boundary. That's when I start looking at day 1 and day 2, which is the majority of my work day. And so what are the things that I have coming up? Has anything changed? Do I need to adapt or modify anything? So I take care of that in kind of that last 30 minutes. So I don't want to, take up too much more time, but day 4 is actually the most important day of the 24-hour period. So that's from 5 p.m. till 9 p.m. So, we all have different requirements based on what it is that we do to earn a living or what we're paid for to earn a living. But essentially day 4 is where you start winding that day down. You do that programmatically. It's a process. It's a set of habits as well. You in the beginning of that, around 5 o'clock, you identify what it is that you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it, how much of it you're going to eat. The same thing with hydration, because it's all about preparation for day 5 and 6, which are your 8 hours of sleep. Because if you're not paying absolute, intentional, mindfulness to day 4, then day 5 and 6 are going to be miserable.
Right.
And that's what so many of my clients encounter. Well, I can't sleep. That's why I'm agitated. I can't do this. I can't do that, because they're not getting good, restful sleep. And it's because they're not preparing to get that sleep. And, they go to bed at midnight, but they didn't eat dinner until 11 o'clock. And then they expect to get some sleep. Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But then there's, a set of processes that I work with them on to develop. And that is leading up till that 9 p.m. And again, I won't go into all the details, but that's where, when do you shut down all of the electronics so that your mind has a chance to basically settle down into a peacefulness. And then, again, potentially some meditation. One of the things that I found to be very powerful, even with my CEOs, who is like, I'm not going to do that crap, but they keep doing it. And that is to literally have a journal that they write in.
Yep.
And what are the 3 things that they're most grateful for, that evening. And then, as I mentioned earlier, write about what you're most excited about the next day. And so that's what your subconscious then marinates on. So when your eyes wake up, as you said, then that is the first thing on the front of mind, is that thing you're most excited about. That doesn't mean there won't be challenges and things that you know about that are not, possibly going to be something you would choose to do, but they have to be done. But by having that one thing that you're excited about doing, kind of puts everything else in a different perspective and allows you to have a much more positive mindset to start the day. And, it's got, you've, probably read the book about Make Your Bed. And so it's the same type of concept. When you start off with something positive, then that's more how your day tends to go.
Yes. It's like you're saying, Jim, it's like, set the intentions, have a formula of what it is that success means to you, and formulating that and breaking your day down into success components, success pods, so that it doesn't seem so overwhelming, so that you also don't let it get away from you, which I love. We have to take responsibility and ownership in the realm of what it is that we're doing. It blows my mind that so many people sit there and say, I just don't know what happens. I don't know where time goes. I'm like, well, here's what you could do. You could take one of these things, it's a pad of paper, and you could just write down in 15-minute increments how you spend your time. Do that for 3 or 4 days. Do that for a couple of weeks if you're feeling auspicious. And guess what? When you look down, you'll figure out where you fucking spend your time.
Exactly.
God, blows my mind. Don't get me fired up. Your calming voice, Jim, has got me like, I'm like, oh, it's so nice. It's all calm. The guy I had on last week, Princeton Clark, we were both like, "Brrr." So it was
Right.
crazy. I was thinking about my viewers right now and my listeners like going, wow, that is such a trip. So we got Freddie Perez in the house saying Jim is the man. Thank you guys also for being here. Pamela is here. Robert's here. Ray is here. What's up, Ray? Misfits for Life. Angel's in the house. Good evening, Angel. How are you? Sending you love and light. Sending you lots of healing prayers. And speaking about healing and speaking about all of this, Jim, I told you originally why I structured the discussion this way, because in getting into mindset and getting into our excuses and getting into, really one of my questions is going to be for you, like, what is our best? But thinking about all that encapsulated in the fact of what it is you're also involved with is the Adaptive Training Foundation, the ATF. And that's what I really wanted to kind of set and let it simmer for everybody who's watching and listening, is the fact what we're talking about before this are, totally able-bodied people who are just like you and I, who are just go through our day as quote unquote normal people. But let's kind of dig into that and talk a little bit about what the Adaptive Training Foundation is. And then I have a brief video that I'm going to give to share with you guys so you guys can kind of see what it's about. But talk to us a little bit about that and how what we've been talking about applies here as well, even exponentially.
Sure. Well, as with most of us, I mean, we all have had significant challenges in life that we've overcome in most cases. And Chris, you and I have, talked about our childhoods and those kinds of things. But what I never realized was that we're literally one heartbeat away from truly life-changing traumatic events. And so kind of having that put in my face about 6 years ago, having met a gentleman by the name of David Vibora, who played in the NFL for 5 years. To this day, I was sharing with a couple of different people today about what goes on at ATF, which I'm going to dive into here. But recognizing how life can change in one heartbeat, and where you are basically left with a completely different mindset about life, and oftentimes significantly struggle with that mentally and emotionally, as well as the physical aspects. It's just truly mind-boggling. And unfortunately, enough people just haven't been faced with something like that to work through it. And so anyway, through a good friend of mine, Chad Hennings, who played for the Dallas Cowboys, he graduated from the Naval Academy and flew in Desert Storm back in the day. He introduced me to this gentleman by the name of David Vibora, who's literally young enough to be my son. He's 34 years old. And we just hit it off from the very beginning. And so he was telling me that he had started kind of an adjunct to a gym that he had here in Dallas, training professional athletes in various sports, various aspects. And he said, why don't you come check it out? And so at that time, it was in a temporary facility that was owned by another common friend of ours, and we didn't know each other, or we didn't know we knew this gentleman who's a former Navy SEAL, actually.
Oh, wow.
So he loaned David the space, but what happened was this gentleman, his name is Clint Bruce, had an event that I had been invited to, but wasn't able to make it for some reason. And David was there, and he sees a gentleman sitting across the way with no arms and no legs. And David was a linebacker. So he's about 6'3", 250, just massive hulk of a young man. He goes up to this guy and he says, so what are you doing to get in shape? And the gentleman said, I ain't got no arms or legs. Don't mean to offend you, but how in the hell would I do that? And David said, come to my gym and we'll figure it out. Yes. And so this gentleman's name was Travis Mills. He lives in Maine. He's married, has a couple of kids, but he's only one of a handful of living quad amputees. And now he has his own foundation where he brings veterans up to Maine and teaches them all kinds of life skills and personal development, all the things you and I geek out over, and travels around the world speaking as well. So anyway, more veterans found out about what David was doing with Travis. So to cut to the chase a little bit, David basically gave up his for-profit gym where he was training athletes, started the nonprofit foundation that's known as Adaptive Training Foundation, and put together 9-week classes where the athletes, as we call them, come in, and we've trained people over the course of time. Many of what we call the alumni athletes have become trainers, but it's like a lab because we learn new things every day. Because basically every situation, every person is different. There are some like Travis who lost all 4 limbs. There's some who maybe only lost an arm. There are others who have spinal cord injuries. And these aren't just from war. We also take civilians now as well. People who've had strokes, who have MS, who have Parkinson's,
Wow.
Guillain-Barré, you name any physical challenge. We don't call them disabilities. They're just differently abled. And what happens is when they come into our facility and we show them what they're physically capable of doing, that traditional medicine has told them they would never be able to do, or they never even went there because of the fear that they had in their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
When they see what they're capable of doing, it completely changes their mindset. And it's a challenge because, if you think about it, and again, I didn't realize it until, I became involved, and that is that these are significant emotional traumas, whether it's been a stroke or whether, I walked on an IED and lost both of my legs over in Afghanistan or whatever. It's an emotional trauma because it is that one heartbeat that could have changed my history, right? And so to be able to mentally and emotionally overcome that, and many of our athletes, have come to us and they have addictions, everything from heroin and meth to alcohol. They sleep with a pistol on their pillow because they don't know if they'll make it through the night. It's just incredibly emotional from that standpoint. But you start to see some of those things fall away, and we have clinical help for them in regard to what we call PTS. It's not PTSD because it's no longer a disorder because it is so prevalent, and most people don't recognize that. They tend to associate it with veterans,
Right.
but now that I've been involved for 6 years, I have yet to meet another human being that doesn't have some degree of PTS based on trauma in their life. And so the sad thing is most people never recognize that. The blessing for these people is it's put right in their lap and they have to deal with it, and they learn to manage it. Again, you don't ever overcome it, but you learn to manage it and put it in its place once again. So we have a 18,000 square foot gym in Carrollton, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas for those who may not know. And we've trained close to 250 athletes, as we call them once again, who now have the physical, mental, and life skills to have, to rejoin their families in some cases. They were physically there, but they weren't there. They were hollow, sacks of skin, basically.
Right.
And it's what they do. It's not what we do as an organization. It's what they do by seeing what they're truly capable of. We do spend a lot of time teaching them mindfulness and meditation, which was a bit of a challenge, particularly for some of the I'll just call it more rugged special forces.
I can only imagine that conversation. You want me to fuck what?
Right. Well,
Then you get them like lotus position, and they're like, oh.
Yeah. Well, and so I remember, this happening. It was about 3 years ago when we introduced it. And, they were all saying, I'm not doing that California woo-woo crap. So no offense to California, but anyway, that was what I was told. And I said, so wait a minute. You were a Navy SEAL, right? Yeah. So were you not issued a firearm at some point in your training? Well, sure. And so what'd you do with that firearm? Well, we were trained how to use it. Well, walk me through that process. Well, typically in training, you just go to the range, you'd identify a target, you'd draw on the target, you would take a few deep breaths, and on that last breath that you would hold, you would pull the trigger. I said, that's meditation. Oh,
yeah, baby.
Okay, I can do that. And so that's what really opened the door for those people. And
well, let's
so
I was going to say, let's paint a picture for these viewers out here. I'm going to share the screen here for a second. I just went to YouTube and got this. So I watched it and I was like, wow, this is really cool. So just to give you guys out there an idea of what it is that Jim and I are talking about. I mean, Jim, obviously you could talk to us about this afterwards, but I really just want to make sure that you guys get a picture of what it is that we are talking about here. So I'm just going to go ahead and press play. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear it.
Do it all again. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, and a heartbeat. So in August 23rd, 2011, in Panjshir, Afghanistan, I got blown up by a roadside bomb. You don't think it happened at first because it's so fast and everything is just violently thrown. But then you're like, oh shit. No. Like you're kind of arguing yourself like, no, they didn't give me, oh, fuck, they didn't. I put the tourniquet on. That was really weird because you feel your bone like move. That's really strange and painful. We all kept checking on each other, just waiting, hey, we're fucked up, come get us. And my platoon, badass, did their job very well. Very well. It was an honor to be with those guys.
The Adaptable Training Foundation is a cost-free adaptive physical training program where we empower people through community and exercise. We take veterans and civilians who experience trauma, loss and spinal cord injury, and we train them and really redefine their limits and what they thought was possible.
When you get injured, you go.
So, yeah, that's just a sample of what that's about. Talk to us about that, Jim. I mean, considering what we were talking about before we went into the Adaptive Training Foundation mindset. I mean, these guys have gone from, like you said, one heartbeat and then boom. Where do they find the new strength, the new courage? Because it was there before, right?
It was there before, but it comes from what most people refer to as community. We actually call it tribe, and it's unique. It's not team. Team changes. You can pick your family. You can't pick your relatives. But the point is, with tribe, there is no one greater than the tribe, and no one gets left behind. So that's really the mindset. And so once they find that, it becomes incredibly cohesive, incredibly powerful. And we build in some things to help make that happen. Twice during each 9-week class that we hold, we have what we call a root meeting, where it's basically a mandatory lock-in for the athletes in that class during an evening along with our staff, which is relatively small, about 6 people. And we put it out there on the table. What is the one thing you absolutely do not want to talk about tonight? That's what we're going to talk about. And
I love it.
so, it's just very raw, very, very emotional, but it's becoming vulnerable enough, almost by force at first, that allows people to recognize, hey, I'm not on this ship alone. I thought I was, but I'm not. And so I looked to my right, I looked to my left, and these two have encountered very similar circumstances and have developed a very similar mindset. But we're here together, we're joined arm in arm. And so it's that tribe mentality that is the most powerful of all. And so what that does is then when I'm working out and I achieve a PR and I go ring this big brass bell that we have, I mean, it's just, like being at a football game. Everybody cheers for each other. Everybody challenges each other. And some of those challenges are not so fun sometimes. I mean, even that, gets raw, but it's absolute accountability. And so just all of the power that comes with those things. And just to share with you, the guy that was on the one wheel, his name is Derek. He's from San Antonio. And he was one of 3 people that were blown up in that Humvee. And so one of the guys lost both legs. All 3 of them actually have come through class. And one of them was a person that you would never expect for this to happen to. Just always the jokester, always cracking up, giving people a hard time, and so on and so forth. And it was 3 years ago in January. He stepped out of the shower one morning and pulled his pistol and took his life. But with Derek, when he first came to see us, the PTS was so severe. It's like, do not touch me. I will not talk to you. You don't talk to me. Just this incredible barrier. But over time, he started to recognize that people were there to be supportive, and it's all come full circle to where every time he sees me, he comes up and gives me this giant sweaty bear hug, and we've gotten to be great friends. He's also a DJ, so whenever we have events at the gym, he's spinning the tunes, and he's learned to bow hunt. He travels all over the country bow hunting now. And the most important thing is, one of our very early, in fact, I think the earliest civilian athlete, a woman named Vanessa, who at 16 was in a car accident, shattered her spine. They met, and they're actually getting married this month.
No way.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, story after story after story. And, I tell people all the time, you can watch the videos. I can talk about it, obviously for days, but, until you walk through the doors of that lab, that gym, it's indescribable, the energy and the experience. And we always tell people, once you walk through those doors, you've joined the tribe and you'll never leave.
Absolutely. And I'm putting, not just for everybody who's listening, I'm actually putting the website up there. It is www.adaptivetrainingfoundation.org. Go check it out. It's a beautiful website. It's got a 360-degree view of the gym. You can see everything that's going on. You can see the stories. It's absolutely phenomenal, Jim. And when I think about tying the 2 different kind of conversations that we've had about, people dealing and struggling with COVID, then you do the whole complete, other end of the spectrum of, having your legs blown off. How do we bridge that? How do we bridge that for the the people that are watching and listening to this, to be able to find that inner strength. I'm on a mission to figure out what my best is and try to define what our best is. And how do we get into that deeper inner warrior to bring that out now, so we don't have to wait until it's like, a heartbeat too late, like you were mentioning.
Yeah. Well, so one thing, just to backtrack a little bit, I wanted everybody to be aware, none of these athletes have ever paid a penny to be a part of the program. It's completely privately funded by individuals, by corporate donorship that we get. And, that's one thing with COVID. You can imagine virtually all donations dried up this last year. So, it's been quite a challenge, but we've been fortunate in that we've had some, major donors, and, a lot of them have stuck with us. So, because they see the benefit. And, like I said, there have been in the neighborhood of about 250 that have come through the program. One of the things that COVID forced us to do was, again, to, be curious about how we could do things differently. So we've developed a new business model that essentially will be a master class, so that as a alumni athlete, if you want to kind of build your own tribe, if you're from, LA, let's say, and you've come through class, then we prep you with all the materials to do your own master class based on that structure. And, you can be compensated if you choose to be, but that just basically, extrapolates out the opportunity for people to become aware and be able to engage with what it is that we do. So, to your question, I think as much as anything, it's looking for an opportunity to serve. That's what I've encountered, not only for myself, but, for so many other people, and even my clients, when they kind of take on this poor, pitiful me attitude, this victim attitude, one of the things that I almost force them to do is to go out and volunteer for something. And it just quickly changes your mindset, and you do adapt, because you realize that there truly are people who are much less fortunate than you are or than I am, and what they have overcome, what they adapt to, is just incredible. And so therefore it's such an inspiration, that I think that's the main thing. So unless you suffer that pain yourself, my recommendation, my suggestion is to go out and get involved in an organization that is providing support, creating value for those who are challenged in some way. And once you do that, I think, again, based on my experience, people start to gain traction. They want to, they want to do more of that, and they go back and get more, and then they start to find. Excuse me, let me take a drink.
Go for it. Is that vodka? I hope so.
I wish. I wish. But they look at their own lives then, and why am I, like we were talking about earlier, why am I wasting these hours in my day when I've lied to myself all this time that I don't have time to go volunteer? Well, when you can provide the perspective that there are hours in the day, and you get your toe in the water to see how you can be of service to another human being and literally change, even if it's only one life, that it makes your life so much more fulfilling. And, one of the things or words that you mentioned earlier is success. And one of the things that I work with my clients on, forget about success. Success is like happiness. It's an event. So we can't be successful, we can't be happy 100% of the time, but we can be fulfilled. We can feel fulfilled 100% of the time, because fulfillment is about the journey. And on that journey, we're going to encounter, peaks and valleys and challenges and, times of joy and euphoria. But it's all of that put together that makes life worthwhile. And that's why we're all here.
It puts the bow on it. It honestly does. I mean, at the end of the day, I love what you said, Jim. I was just telling somebody that today. I said, you know what? One of the greatest gifts that I got when I got into coaching was not doing it for money, but for doing it for the realization that, of course, I was helping people. But that very aspect, Jim, was my instruction to them was, I call it pay it forward coaching. So I would send them out to go do 3 nice things for somebody else, complete strangers, and come back and tell me about it as their way of paying me for the coaching. And I quickly realized that it wasn't necessarily my coaching that was the big part of it. It was the fact, like you just said, they went out and they fed the homeless, or they went and sang songs at the old folks home and realized time is innocent. They went and delivered stuffed animals to the kids at the cancer ward at St. Joe or St. Jude. Then they come back and like, yeah, I'm bitching because, I'm not losing weight, or I'm bitching because my finances are kind of screwed up, or I'm bitching because, I've got this problem with these coworkers at work. And it's phenomenal because, again, it really is about that perspective shift. And what we're talking about, Jim, is we're talking about people just shifting just a little bit, just shift a little bit. I'm not asking you to change your complete belief system about, who you vote for politics, but just, hey, can I have a different perspective? Can I seek first to understand in this situation so that I'm not frustrated? But I love how you say that, because when you go give and you go serve, it's amazing the rewards and the flow of love that comes back into you that almost makes the issues and the problems seem almost insignificant. I mean, not compared to what these guys are going through, not in the slightest respect. But being able to lay your head on your pillow at night and say, you know what, it's really not that bad, and tomorrow's a brand new day.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll just share one more story. It was kind of a very quick snapshot, but I don't know if everybody caught the gentleman that was doing the push-ups that had no legs in the video that you showed. But anyway, David was late getting home one night from his for-profit gym when that was still going. And his wife was upset with him for being late. They've got 2 little kids, and he's approaching a red light. So he decides to do something completely illegal, cuts through a Starbucks parking lot to avoid the red light. And as he's going through the parking lot, he sees this guy in a wheelchair rolling across with no legs. And so all of a sudden, he just gets hit right here with this feeling. He said it was a God moment. Right. Stop your car and go talk to that guy. And so it's like, really, now? And he did. So David, again, being this linebacker, goes running up to this gentleman whose name is Brian Aft, and Brian thinks he's going to get mugged because this giant is running at him. And David's just trying to say, hey, my name's David Vibora. What are you doing to get in shape, and that kind of thing. And anyway, Brian ended up coming to the gym. But what happened was that members of the employees in the Starbucks kind of observed what was going on. Long story short, it ended up getting all the way up to the chain to Howard Schultz.
No way.
Yeah. And so Howard he and his wife's private foundation have become great friends of ATF over the years. And but it's just, if David hadn't stopped, then Brian Aft, quite literally because of where he was at in his head at the time, would probably not be alive today. But it was also, then the follow-on engagement by an organization like Starbucks.
Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. People can get a hold of you at jimgardnerlive.com, jimgardnerlive.com. Go check them out. Social media at jimgardnerlive, at jimgardnerlive. Jim, thank you so much. I know it's late there in Texas. I know you've been dealing with mad hay fever and all the different things you got going on. So thank you for bringing your A game tonight. And thank you for sharing your heart and your soul and your brilliance and your intellect with me. Once again, it's been way too long since we've had this conversation and been able to talk. I value you. I respect you. I appreciate you, the work that you're doing, and especially in this community and what you do overall in making the world a better place. I thank you. I love you, brother. I'm going to stick you backstage in the green room for a second. Any final words for our audience before I do that? And then I'll catch up with you in the green room afterwards.
Yeah, just go out and be a warrior and serve. That's the bottom line. You'll find that it'll change your life. And Chris, it was such an honor. It was a lot of fun, as we knew it would be. I appreciate you so much, brother. And I just thank you. And, everybody keep watching Chris and his amazing guests and information that he puts out there on this podcast.
Thank you, brother. Hey, I'm going to put you backstage and just for a second, then I'm going to end the show and then we'll talk up a little bit more. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 59 minutes and 34 seconds. See, I did it under an hour. I'm not going to be done in an under hour, but that's what's going on. That's what's going on. Angel says, was a way laid back evening. Christopher Rausch, nice to see you. And Jim, have a good night. Warrior. Yes, you are a warrior. And we'll keep you in our thoughts. Yeah, it's kind of different than last week, right? We had Princeton Clark on last week with Evolve Mastery, and me and him were just like, brrr. I mean, I even had to get off the interview and like go chill out. But thank you guys all for being here. Pamela says, a room full of rock stars, to be sure. Absolutely. Thank you. Pamela's actually my co-host on my other show called Rainbows and Real Talk. So yes, thank you for being here. Thank you guys all for being here. Thank you, Jim, for being here. Christopher says, I'm late as usual. Well, guess what, Christopher? You can go back and watch the beginning because this is a phenomenal show. You got to watch it because it's full of inspiration. It's full of tenacity, which I know you need and you're going through. I hope you're doing well, brother. I hope you're feeling better and you got that stuff taken under control. But so overall, the message tonight really is about that tenacity, about that inner drive, about looking at your life, not as a victim, but as a victor, and looking at opportunities and challenges that come your way as a way of saying, what can I do to overcome this? How can I find my inner strength? How can I kick my comfort zone to the curb and say, fuck that. I'm not going to do that anymore, and find the resiliency, find the strength to be able to look ourselves and identify the fact that the solutions are within us. The solutions are within our capacity to go out there and explore. We have Google, we have YouTube, we have people, we have connections. There are things that you can do right now for whatever situation you're in that you're struggling with. You can go find the answer. You can go start applying opportunities to change that trajectory on what it is that you're doing, change the results, change the outcomes by changing what it is that you're focusing on doing today. If you feel like you have a limited capacity, if you feel like that's too much work, if you feel like you can't do that, then guess what your results are going to be, right? You have to believe. What does my little gig say right there? It says believe. It says believe. You have to believe. You have to believe that the opportunities are presented in front of you that you can handle. I've heard it said before. Jim said it a little bit. God doesn't give us what we can't handle. And sometimes God thinks I'm fucking crazy, that I can handle all these different things. But the truth of the fact is, yes, we can. And once you have that confidence, once you have that unstoppable brilliance to be able to realize that whatever is going to be laid in your path, that you're going to figure it out and you're going to overcome it. And better yet, you're going to go back and help other people who have that same situation. Then it gives everything that we go through in life meaning. It gives it purpose. It gives it principle. It gives us an opportunity to step outside of ourselves and not look at life as, oh my God, all these things are happening, to me. This is an opportunity for me to go out there and make the world a better place for who it is and what I do. So that perspective and that opportunity lies with each and every one of you. You can get off this call and feel inspired and motivated and go on about the rest of your evening or go about the rest of your day, depending on what time you're watching this. But I really invite you to sit there and take a few moments, take one of these beautiful things. It's technology. It's a yellow pad. Take that and take this instrument and then write down some ideas that you could start doing. Like Jim said, don't try to eat the elephant all at once. Go one bite at a time. Go one opportunity at a time. Start your day off. That's one thing that I really want to support what Jim says is if you don't have a routine, if you don't have a structure, if you're waking up and looking at your cell phone and looking at the news and looking at your emails and looking at social media and doing the comparison check to see where you're at versus where everybody else is at in the world, guess what you're going to find? You're going to find a shitty day. You wake up and you keep your eyes closed. You don't wake your eyes up yet. You keep your eyes closed and you set what your intentions are. You set what you're grateful for. You get, see, I'm a man of my word. You get journals like this. If you're a writing person, this is a beautiful journal. On one side of the page, you can sit there and write what you're grateful for. And on the other side of the page, you can write what you're excited for, like Jim said. Or you can write, for me, I do my gratitudes on one side and I do my intentions on the other side. So, ladies and gentlemen, the opportunities are there. Don't tell me you can't afford it. Don't tell me you don't have time. Don't tell me you don't know how. Don't give me any of your fucking excuses. Just go out there and do it. I'm your no excuses coach. I love you guys. Next week we got another brilliant show. And by the way, speaking of healing humanity, one more thing I would just want to share with you guys. What's up, Robert? Is please. One of the foundations that I'm really involved with right now as on the board of directors is Helphealhumanity.org. And we'd just love for you guys as well, just to go over and take a look at the website, consider sponsoring a child, consider sponsoring whatever it is you can do, because this is a worldwide organization that we are aimed at, enforcing the fact that we want to make sure that we can heal humanity, whether it's in Haiti, whether it's in Spain, whether it's in Cambodia, or whether it's here in the United States, which is something I'm very passionate about as well. So be sure to go over there and check that out and give us a hand up or a handout or whatever it is that you could possibly do to help what it is that we are going for. So that's my little request of you guys for the patronage here of being on the show. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here and spending your Tuesday nights with us. We love you, and we will see you next time here on the Raw and Unscripted show. I love you guys.